As mayor, she was called Calamity Jane, Fighting Jane, and plain down to brass tacks Jane. She's called Private Citizen now. But the question is Jane Byrne working toward a new beginning as Mayor Jane? Hi, I'm Joan McGrath, and today marks a new beginning for us at WSNS-TV also. This is the debut of Dimensions, our in-depth discussion series, which you will find every Wednesday at this hour on Channel 44. I'm glad you could join me and my premier guest, former Mayor Jane Byrne, on this, our maiden broadcast. Thank you for being here.
Nice to be here, Joan.
We say Mayor Byrne in retrospect, and we
Lady Jane, as you said, a lot of names. I've been called many things.
When did young Jane, Lady Jane, first decide that she could conceivably be mayor of the city of Chicago?
Just walking the streets of Chicago and talking to people, and it was after I had been terminated, and there seemed to be a movement even before the snow. To me, a lot of people didn't think so. I did. And they kept saying, go for it. And I really didn't know what they meant. Go for what, you know? Here you're out of a job, and people are saying, you know, go for it, and putting this up, and I didn't even know what it meant. And all of a sudden, the only plausible thing to go for was mayor.
I've read your piece that you wrote in Chicago Magazine, and the word you used to describe the atmosphere of the city at that point in time was intimidation.
There was.
What were people intimidated of?
I think we're going through a transition now. I think we were going through a transition then. And I think probably even Mayor Bilandic was in that same transition. And I think you were seeing the end of an era, which had been the Daley era, and a breaking down of many of the old coalitions. And television had played such an important role in the past 10, 15 years, where you saw a changing and a breakdown of the machine as well. The precinct captain used to come to your home, tell you this, that, and the other thing. You were getting information every night right in your living room, not just at election time. And I think everything was just, you know, beginning to be very clear to people in a way of, you know, well, what's really going on? What is this Democratic Party? What is the city doing? And there's so much of it to digest. And it seemed that there was a fear at the same time, like a hanging on to something that they weren't quite sure of. And I think we were all part of that transition.
Were you ever afraid?
Sure, I think. Yeah. You mean when I was a candidate?
You used the word fear as it applies to other people.
There was a fear. There was a fear of some of the old patterns. You would talk to people in public housing, and they were afraid. They had been told for years, you know, you better vote right because everybody knows how you vote, and you won't get to stay here. Well, of course, nobody does know how you vote, but you keep telling that to people, and they believe it. And then all of a sudden, they keep seeing things on TV, and they start to think, no, I don't think they do know how I vote, but they're not quite sure. You go to high-rises, say on Lakeshore Drive at that time, and people that wanted to have you in for a coffee party, they might have been told by the manager, don't bring her here. I mean, they would tell me that. My assessments will go up. And you had that. There's no doubt about it, you had that.
There were a lot of people in Bilandic's administration in the city council at the time who gave you an attaboy or attagirl, telling you, run for it, congratulations, you're exposing the evil cabal.
Right.
And yet, when you confronted them in the hallway, they turned their head on you. Why was that?
Are you talking about the actual, the people that I judged the cabal?
I'm talking about the people who wrote you the letters saying congratulations, saying go for it.
Well, those were the people. Now, don't mix those up with the people I worked with in City Hall. From the moment I did what I did, you know, nobody talked to you. I mean, really, that is its own little punishment. I mean, that you could have worked for the city at that time, what, 12, 13 years, been co-chairman of the Democratic Party, commissioner, first woman commissioner, to the point that, you know, you are blacklisted. You turned on them, and you are blacklisted. So there was no encouragement from those insiders. There were people within City Hall who worked in the building who were with me, but not your leaders of the council or cabinet members. No way.
You were a protege of Mayor Daley's.
Right.
You were a hand-picked protege, as a matter of fact.
Yes, I was.
Did it surprise you that everybody was turning their back on you?
No, I anticipated that. I anticipated you know, there was this system, and that system was closed, and you didn't do that. And if you did that, you could expect to have all of the linkages of the machine turn their back on you also. Talk about everybody. I mean, you try to raise a quarter to run under those circumstances, to even buy TV time or pay for, you know, a commercial. Forget it. Because there's no way it's going to happen.
What made you go through with it? What made you sense that you could really pull this one off?
I was, as you know, a believer in the Kennedy mistake. And I truly believed, in fact, I used to put it on a lot of my things as a commissioner, my annual reports and so forth, that if one person, the quote was along these lines, if one person stands up for a principle or an ideal, they will be joined by forces and individuals with other ideals and other principles from across the globe. And together they will join together and make something. And I believed it. I still do.
That's very philosophical. On the more practical level.
More practical level was rent had to be paid, and my daughter was in college, and my husband worked for a newspaper that folded at the same time, and it was very impractical and very sad for both of them at times. Kathy was a junior in college, and I can remember she had grown up with it. I mean, I was in government from the time she was a baby, and now she was out too. And I remember in the summer that she came home for school, that summer before I won, going in one night and she was crying, you know. And she turned to me and she said, "Whatever made you think you could beat the machine?" You know, great frustration. And the same thing, if you're out of a job and your paper is folded and your wife's running for mayor and you're a reporter, well, you're conflict of interest, so nobody wants to hire you either. So Jay worked 3 jobs to keep me going.
Did they try to stop you? Either Kathy or Jay?
No. No, as a matter of fact, it got hard for me to know what they were going through. And in late August, you know, I said, well, I know she wasn't going to go back to school. She was going to stay and help me. Well, fortunately, she went back because I thought that would be terrible. It was her last year. And it was not easy, and I told them both, you know, this is something that I wanted to do, and if it's too much, I want you to tell me, because I'll stop. And they both said, no, 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 you can't stop. You got to keep going.
You have a very close family, don't you?
Very close.
Happily married?
Very happily married. Came from a very big family, too, of very happily married brothers and sisters.
People have said that Kathy's your best friend. Is that true?
Kathy and I have always been very close. She was an only child, and her father was killed when she was 15 months old, as you know, in a plane crash. She was a Marine pilot. And so probably we were closer than most, you know, that I see, because in most families that I would relate to, there was more than one child in a family situation. And I did not remarry until she was, let's see, 20.
Why? Why so many years being single?
Probably because I didn't meet anybody. I mean, it was no, in the beginning it was an absolute determination, I think, on my part that this has happened. She's 15 months old. And in those days, go back, there was no ERA, there was no women's rights, really. Women were second-class citizens. A child without a father, a man, was second-class because there was no male identity. And so it sort of was a thing to me that if she's going to have any kind of identity, I've got to do it for her. And it became that kind of a drive. I mean, I found myself knowing how I had been raised and knowing that that was not going to happen for her, and knowing that the only way I could do something to give her a background, even a family background, was that if I achieved myself. And so by working hard, I think I did. I became a commissioner, and that was before the roll of the dice to be mayor.